Thank you for being with us here on CBS News Chicago. I'm Marie Saavedra, and we have been listening in as Illinois' top leaders responded to calls from President Trump to have more members of the military patrolling the streets of Chicago. Those renewed calls coming from a press conference in the Oval Office earlier today from the president. Late this afternoon, that is when President Trump said he is sending federal help. That move brought swift response, as we just heard from both state and local leaders. Our political reporter Chris Ty was there at this press conference. That's where the governor and the mayor just spoke. Chris, I understand that from the statements I heard, there seems to be both a lot of defiance and also warnings to people who live in the city of Chicago for what may happen in the coming days.
That's right. Defiance and warning is a good way to put it, Marie. This is the clearest picture yet that we have gotten from a position of authority like the governor here today, indicating that he has kind of used a tapestry of sources, from calls from Immigration and Customs Enforcement to the Illinois State Police this weekend, to talking with journalists on the ground out in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and here in Chicago. The clearest picture yet that they have begun the process to deploy several federal agencies, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and of course the signaling here now that the National Guard is also coming here as well. The president's words today were a little mixed. He said, "We are going to Chicago." Unclear if he meant specifically the Guard, but Governor Pritzker clearing that up in a significant way, Marie, saying that he has learned from multiple sources that there are National Guard troops from Los Angeles that are going to be moving here to Chicago. Some have already arrived. He's also saying that there are members of the Texas National Guard that are going to be doing the same thing. We should note, in real time, as that press conference was going on that you just aired, the governor of Texas signaled that's not accurate, that the Texas National Guard is not mobilizing to Chicago. Pritzker saying that is what his sources are telling him. So, Maria, of course, as we start our 4 o'clock news in earnest, we'll play for you all of the news that came out of today. In fact, let's do that right now. Let's begin with sort of what we heard that made the biggest headline, the biggest splash here today from Governor Pritzker and then Mayor Johnson. Let's roll that.
In the coming days, we expect to see what has played out in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. to happen here in Chicago. It is likely those agents will be with ICE, Customs and Border Patrol, the Department of Homeland Security, and other similarly situated federal agencies. Many of these individuals are being relocated from Los Angeles for deployment in Chicago. We believe that staging that has already begun started yesterday and continues into today. Unidentifiable agents in unmarked vehicles with masks are planning to raid Latino communities and say they're targeting violent criminals. We have reason to believe that Stephen Miller chose the month of September to come to Chicago because of celebrations around Mexican Independence Day.
He just wants his own secret police force that would do publicity stunts whenever his poll numbers are sinking. Whenever his jobs report shows a stagnating economy, whenever he needs another distraction from his failures. That's
the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois, Juliana Stratton, calling these ugly realities and that many Illinoisans will be living in deep fear in coming days. We should make mention Stephen Miller, who the governor mentioned is a senior aide to the president, who is believed, not confirmed, to be one of the architects of all of this. Now, about 2 hours ago, we heard from the Oval Office President Trump talking in some of the most forceful language yet, in clear terms, using this weekend's violence in Chicago. And while the story of violence in Chicago this year has been a very favorable one, this weekend was a very difficult one in Chicago. The president sort of using that to make his point and to argue why federal agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement to Homeland Security to the National Guard need to come to Chicago. Let's roll that.
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. Over the last 2 days, that was the crown jewel. They had, I guess, 9 or 10 killed, and 50 hit with bullets. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world. Chicago is a hellhole right now. We're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it. because I have an obligation to protect this country.
So the timing of all of this is really the critical next questions, Marie. During that press conference, I asked the governor, what exactly can you confirm for us as far as mobilization already underway? He says federal agents have already arrived, some last night, some today, and that there are some vehicles that have arrived. The governor's sort of thin on details of exactly which department and what kind of vehicles, but it certainly appears from the governor's perspective that the go button has been hit. And the question now is, when will we see this in earnest? He says he believes that Mexican Independence Day events may be the target. We'll have much more on this throughout our afternoon, but that's the very latest here as we've gotten our first picture yet that things appear to now be in mobilization mode, Marie.
That they do. Chris Ty with that breaking news for us. Thank you, Chris. Joining me now to discuss so much of what we just heard and some other details that have added to the story today is CBS News Chicago legal analyst Irv Miller. Now, what we're referencing is this decision from a federal judge who ruled the Trump administration's deployment of these federal troops to Los Angeles was illegal. We want to talk about what that may mean for Chicago. But first off, this judge found in the decision, Irv, correct me if I'm wrong, but the government's action broke a law. This is the Posse Comitatus Act from the 1800s, which prohibits federal military to come into a city and perform any sort of like domestic law enforcement response when there's not an insurrection, correct?
You hit it on the head.
Oh, good. I was setting up for you.
It's exactly what the law from the 1870s provide, and law ever since. It's a law right now. And the federal judge in California said, listen, there was no insurrection in Los Angeles. There's no way that the deployment of National Guard or active military in Los Angeles was legal. But what he did say is that when the National Guard is there or they're protecting federal property, they can do that. They can stay there and protect federal property. What they can't do, which is what they've been doing, is going along with ICE to help ICE commit to round up people as illegal aliens and bring them in and send them to detention centers. And they can't help ICE do that.
But they can be outside federal buildings, et cetera. And it sounds like there's some 300 troops that may still do that in Los Angeles, though now we're hearing some are moving to Chicago. Does that mean now that the judge has made the decision that should troops be coming here, that the only thing they can legally do is guard one of these buildings?
Well, here's what's interesting. The judge in California has no say-so over what happens in the state of Illinois or the city of Chicago. But what I anticipate will happen is the Illinois Attorney General will file a lawsuit 3 blocks from here in federal court, and it'll go before a local federal judge. Now, that federal judge here is not bound by the decision of the Los Angeles federal judge. However, the decision in Los Angeles is what we call persuasive authority. The judge here could look at it and say, hey, this was a well-reasoned decision. It was written properly. It makes sense. I'm going to adopt what that judge says. Or, on the other hand, the judge here could say, I don't believe that's the law, what the judge wrote in Los Angeles, and I'm not going to apply that ruling here in Chicago.
Got it. I know we've got a little bit of time left, but there were some quotes from the decision that you pointed out to us. I want to read the first one if I can, if we can put that up on the screen. It said there were indeed protests in Los Angeles. Some individuals were engaged in violence, yet there was no rebellion, nor was such civilian law enforcement unable to respond to the protests and enforce the law. The judge basically saying that LA law enforcement could have handled this themselves?
That's what the judge is saying, but he's also saying, hey, listen, the first requirement of the Posse Comitatus Act to allow federal troops to be doing law enforcement actions is there has to be an insurrection. Well, you know, you look out the window here, you look out, you go down the street, there's no insurrection here. It's not happening. So technically, what happened in the claim of insurrection there, I don't know how they're going to prove it here, just by, unfortunately, a lot of crime that did happen in Chicago in the last few weeks, but I don't think anyone can say that's an insurrection.
Okay. Much more to go through on this, and I know we'll be talking to you in the coming days, but Irv Miller here to give us a guide on what this could look like as a legal fight seems to be promised should we see these troops come onto our streets in the state of Illinois. Irv, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.